Last night, a brand new episode of Agatha All Along came out, and we learned surprisingly a lot about these characters. We got so much character development, particularly between Agatha and Rio and Agatha and Teen, but we also learned a lot about Alice and her relationship with her mother and her family and just her outlook on life. This was very much her trial and her episode in a lot of ways. But I want to go back to Rio because we have officially gotten pretty much our first official queer relationship in the MCU, which is very exciting. So Rio has a big dramatic entrance, Sam Raimi-like, almost like the really cool scenes in Multiverse of Madness with Wanda kind of doing contortions and things of that sort. But she came out of the grave that they had just buried Sharon Davis in, and I think that this is, at first, I didn't understand why they were summoning a green witch, but I didn't understand why she came out of the grave. And then she spoke a little bit about how she was in the neighborhood and how there was some sort of relationship there. And then I remembered that leak Funko Pop that revealed her character, and that all made a lot of sense because if you've seen it, you've seen it. I'm not going to spoil it here. But just the fact that she was there when Mrs. Davis died, she, later in the episode, she says that once they're finished with the road, Agatha can have her power back, and Shield's going to take the bodies of the three witches. So very much alluding to what her character will be. I think that this episode really just validated that Funko Pop leak tremendously, especially if you were looking for it. But it was also just like a really good piece of the puzzle. Agatha and Rio's relationship is volatile, but we learned that there was so much love still there, and so much love before. Aubrey Plaza even calls Catherine Hahn's character of Agatha her scar when they're all sharing battle wounds. And she goes, "I have a scar." I will say it was kind of unusually steamy for the MCU when Agatha instinctively responds, "No, you don't." Because it's implied that, she's seen a lot of Rio and she knows her so well that she knows she doesn't have a scar, at least not a physical scar. She does call Agatha her scar because they were very much in love, but she had to do her job. I think we kind of figure what her job is in terms of Mrs. Sharon's death, looking for the bodies. Anyway, that she had to do her job. And this broke Agatha's heart. And so I think the fan in me is kind of leaning towards the theory that there were so many rumors about Agatha giving up her son for the Darkhold. But I think the sequence of events was different. I think her son died somehow, unexplained as of yet. And that was part of the job that Rio had to do that drove her and Agatha apart, because there's so much love. To truly drive them apart would have to be something tremendously difficult, like the death of her son. And so I think that kind of led her to the Darkhold to try to bring her son back, which is a very human motivation. It's also very similar, if not the same motivation that Wanda had to herself go and use the Darkhold. And so I think that adding those connections between Agatha's journey and Wanda's journey is so interesting and compelling and makes their relationship that much more dynamic. But yeah, that is all very interesting. Of course, this is all unconfirmed. This is just my thinking based off how this episode is laid out. But kind of going back to her son, there's definitely a connection there between her and Teen. I think she very much wants to believe that Teen is her son. And as we learned in this episode, the sigil that prevents anyone from knowing the identity of Teen works not only on those who the witch meant to hide him from, but it works on the witch herself. So even if Agatha did cast it, she would not know. She would simply not know, because that's just kind of how they work. And so I think that adds a layer of complexity between them, because her maternal instincts towards Teen are like at a 10 in this episode, especially towards the end when he gets injured and it looks really bad for him. Her walls are down. And I think there was something so human about that. But then again, those walls came right back up when Teen asked her what really happened to her son. So clearly that's something that still haunts her. But I don't think it's for the reason that we originally thought, which is that she gave him up for the Darkhold. That's just kind of my thinking on it right now. But getting back to who this episode was really about, and that is Alice's character played by Ali An. We learned a lot about her character and her family. There is a generational curse that has been around for generations. It killed her grandmother, it killed her mother, who we find out that while she didn't die on the witch's road, she did die on the road, meaning she was touring when she died in a fire, which fire is a big theme and a big element in this particular episode. But we also learned that the famous Ballad of the Witch's Road that her mom made was actually a protection curse, and the song then became so popular that at any given moment someone is playing that song, which protects her and is what's keeping Alice's character alive for so long, despite her literally having a curse upon her. You see what she believed were birthmarks, were actually burn marks of the curse, literally weighing her down. And I think that there's obviously some metaphors here towards, generational trauma and how that's passed on from generation to generation. And sometimes it takes a long time to kind of truly get rid of all of that trauma. It can't always be completely gone in one generation. Like, her mom really worked hard to protect her from this curse, but yet she wasn't able to. So then she took up kind of the mantle of finishing the job, letting herself go of that curse. And you can tell at the end of the episode, she felt a lot lighter. She acted a lot lighter. She was able to bond more with her fellow witches, which is a direct result of her curse being lifted. And so I think that was a very, very special moment. And I love that the way that they got rid of the curse was through a jam session. And you learned a lot about her becoming more empowered as she sang. She sang with more conviction. As Agatha said, she sang it like a witch. And so that was really good. I loved the motif that they went with here, which is like 70s rock. And at first I was a little bit confused as to how that relates to the overall theme, but then I realized that this show isn't really, unlike WandaVision, where WandaVision was very clearly going through sitcom eras, this show is not so much worried about that, and it's just really sort of tailoring the genre to the witch, as the road said. So it's a lot less structured, but I think it kind of works for this show. And so yeah, towards the end of this episode, the curse has been lifted, but we get the episode doesn't just end as soon as they finish that first trial. We get a little bit more development towards the end of the episode. We see them bond, all the witches bond a little bit more. We see that, like I mentioned earlier in this video, they talk about their battle scars. And so I thought it was funny when Agatha shared her wound, her scar, and she mentioned, have you ever heard of the Daughters of Liberty? And they were all like, no. And she's like, exactly, meaning that, she got rid of them. But I think that when they all started laughing at that, Agatha's reaction was like, she was kind of hesitant to laugh along with them, because you can tell she's not very familiar with this type of female camaraderie. She's very much always kind of fought against them and felt like she was always in competition for power between the other witches that she's kind of come to contact with. And so I think that her restructuring how that relationship between other witches works is very interesting, and it sort of also touches upon, breaking out of that patriarchal way of thinking that women are often pitted against each other, when really, it is that bond between them that will ultimately end up helping them the most. And so I think that was very interesting. And there's small moments like this that have so much more meaning to them, and that make this show so unique. But also towards the end of this episode, I already touched upon Agatha Rio's relationship, but again, her son is a big, big thing in this episode. She immediately put her walls up when Teen mentioned it. And when she's hugging Rio and they're about to kiss, Rio brings up that boy is not your son, meaning Teen is not her son. And her walls instinctively kind of go back up. And a lot of me is wondering why Rio said that in that moment. And I think it has to be because that definitely must be the reason that drove them apart. And so as they're coming together, she doesn't want them she doesn't want them to start off ignoring that part of them. I think that there's so much love and care there that if they're gonna start things again, it has to be from a level of honesty and understanding, which, you wouldn't expect that from these witches who are kind of conniving in sometimes, especially Rio. But, that just goes to show you how love can really transform a person, which is really interesting. And so, yes, I really, really like this episode. I think it might be, if not my favorite, my second favorite episode of the show so far. But again, we're only 4 episodes in. I am sure there's a lot more exciting things to do, but I like how things are being laid out and how, theories are kind of being formulated in a way that's different from WandaVision, that it doesn't feel like we're reaching. It feels like we are looking at the puzzle pieces and trying to put them together, and it's coming together really well. So I am very excited to see episode 5. Did I miss anything that you didn't? Let me know what you thought of this episode. Let me know if you have any theories onto the thing that broke Rio and Agatha up. Also, what happened to her son? There are so many burning questions, like how did the doctor bind Jennifer? Why does Lilia's character keep saying random things? Are they things that she's going to say in future episodes? Are they warnings? What is happening with that? There's still so many burning questions, but things are starting to come together, and it's very exciting. So yes, I loved Agatha all along, and I would love to see if you're loving it as much as I am, because I think this show is probably one of the best things the MCU has done in a really, really long time.